Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's me, it's Clayton. I'm going to do a different type of video this time. Since I decided to see Captain America Civil War for the second time, I decided that I would go over a comparison between Captain America Civil War the comic and the movie and see which one I like more. You can call this video comics comparisons. I might do this for several comic storylines when I'm done watching a movie. Okay, anyways. There are actually many differences between Captain America Civil War, the comic, and the movie. As Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors, said that they wanted to make a film that was based on the ideas of Civil War rather than the actual events. For example, the inciting incident of the comic is that a bunch of young superheroes get blown up by a supervillain named Nitro along with 600 civilians, and that causes the United States government to enact the Superhero Registration Act, which causes all the superheroes to have to register with the government. Captain America opposes this, whereas Iron Man supports it. In the movie, it's more about all the incidents that occurred in the previous movies as well as the one in this movie, with the battles in Wakanda, Sokovia, Lagos, and in New York. And instead of the Superhero Registration Act, it's the Sokovia Accords, which is put together by the UN. And that basically says the Avengers will be controlled by the UN and will only be sent out on missions if it's absolutely necessary. And once again, Captain America opposes it, whereas Iron Man supports it. Also, the roles of the characters are vastly different in the two versions. For example, Black Panther's role in the original Civil War comic actually didn't come into play until after a certain superhero, Black Goliath, ends up dying. In the movie, it's actually based on the storyline that he started out with, where T'Challa witnesses his father T'Chaka's death, though this time at a Vienna UN meeting. And that's what convinces him to go after Bucky Barnes. Whereas in the comic, it was more about him siding with Captain America rather than Iron Man. Also, in Captain America Civil War, the comic, there was no real big villain outside of Captain America and Iron Man. It was really more of a battle of ideals between these two heroes and the superheroes that support either side. In the movie, we have a clear villain, Helmut Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, who is entirely different from the Baron Zemo in the Captain America comics, as Adhesive X is never referenced, the paste that he makes in the comics, and not to mention the fact that Baron Zemo in the original Civil War storyline was a member of the Thunderbolts, a reformed team of supervillains that Iron Man ended up recruiting for his team. Yeah, a couple of characters were really out of character in the original comics, as at least in the Civil War storyline. And even though Steve was pretty darn out of character with his ideals costing so many lives, I think the worst one was poor Tony. I mean, thank God his character was written a whole hell of a lot better in the Civil War movie rather than in the comic. I'm sorry if you don't like what I'm saying about the comic, I'm just not a big Mark Miller fan. Anyways, Baron Zemo incites the incident also due to the collateral damage that caused the Sokovia Accords to be made in the first place, as his family were among the people who died after the battle in Sokovia in Avengers Age of Ultron. Hulk is not present for the Civil War in both versions, but for very different reasons. In the movies, you've probably seen it's because he was left on a helicarrier in the middle of the battle in Sokovia, whereas in the comic he was sent into space by Iron Man, Black Panther, and Mr. Fantastic, among others, because he was deemed too dangerous, which led to the events of the Planet Hulk animated film, if I remember correctly. Not only that, but it seems that Black Goliath's death in the original comics was more alluded to with War Machine's heavy injuries, but thankfully, unlike Black Goliath, War Machine did not die, though he was paralyzed from the waist down. Though he must have gotten out insanely lucky, considering how he took a shot from the from Vision directly to his arc reactor and fell hundreds of feet down to the ground, which I doubt any normal human being would survive. So yeah, there are a lot of differences, but one of the biggest differences between Captain America Civil War, the comic, and the movie has to be the ending. The ending of the original comics involved Captain America and Iron Man fighting out after Captain America ends up saving a bunch of captured superheroes. After almost delivering the killing blow, Captain America realizes that the fighting that he's been going through this whole time has been relatively meaningless, as it's not letting him win his argument, and he decides to turn himself in, which causes him to get assassinated, yes, assassinated, by a brainwashed Sharon Carter. This would lead to the events where Sam Wilson would become the new Captain America. In the new movie, it's entirely different, as the movie is more focused on the relationship between Cap, Bucky, and Tony Stark. Tony eventually realizes, thanks in no small part to Zemo, that Bucky, while he was, being controlled by Hydra, actually killed off both of Tony Stark's parents, which causes Tony, Cap, and Bucky to get involved in a fistfight where Captain America disables Stark, though he does not kill him, and Stark ends up blowing Bucky's metal arm off. Then Cap leaves. He leaves his shield behind as well, and decides to save his friends that were captured, which included Scarlet Witch, Falcon, Ant-Man, and Hawkeye. So, which one's better? It should be fairly obvious. The film really understood that a lot of the aspects of Civil War didn't exactly work in the long run, and that a lot of the events that happened were very contrived as just an excuse to see Captain America and Iron Man fight it out. It wasn't as contrived as the excuses made in Batman vs. Superman, but they were still contrived nonetheless. Whereas in the movie, it totally makes sense given how the storyline of the MCU has gone through. So not only do you understand why Cap would want to protect Bucky despite everything that says otherwise, you totally understand why Tony would want to go after Bucky and why he supports the Sokovia Accords. So for this round, I say that the film Captain America Civil War does a much better job with its storyline than the original one by Mark Miller. Tell me what you guys think. If you like this type of video, I might consider making another one for X-Men Apocalypse or Batman v Superman. See you later.